Hey, y'all, let me clap it up for y'all. We have reached 300 subs. Hey, from the bottom of my heart, I so do appreciate all of you all. I've been sitting on this idea for probably about 6 months before I decided to make a video. But when I decided to make a video just 2 months ago, I'm talking about y'all have came, supported, you have subscribed, dropped comments, shared. This channel has hit the stars and I look forward to it continue growing. Thank you so much for over 300 subs. One more time. Hey. And because of that, over these 2 months, I've gotten a couple people to ask me a couple questions about my advice and what I would do in certain situations. So I decided today, let me take the time to go ahead and answer these questions that y'all have submitted to me over these past 2 months. Let's get into it. The first question is, what are the best assignments to take for new interpreters? Well, I would say that the best assignments for new interpreters, honestly, are the ones that you know what's going on. Whether you know what's going on with the content itself, or you know what's going on with the clients and the people that you're interpreting for. If you know what's going on, those are the best assignments for you to take, especially for new interpreters. I'll say this, use this as a rule of thumb. Understand the difference in profile and risk level, all right? So you can have an assignment that is high profile, meaning that a lot of eyes would be on it. At the same time, that high profile assignment can be low risk. So something that's not detrimental if you mess up or do it right, it's not going to ruin anything. But those are different. So you want to stay away from the high profile, high risk assignments. But you want to analyze, your profile risk ratio. What is that? For example, if you have, let's say, like a cooking class that you're going to interpret. A cooking class generally is low risk. No one's going to die. No one's going to get hurt. At the most, someone might be hungry, you know? So a cooking class would be low risk. But if that cooking class is being broadcasted somewhere, it could still be high profile. So you want to make sure you evaluate that, but profile and risk ratio is probably your best bet when you're doing these assignments for new interpreters. The next question is, if I know a client, should I tell them I'm their interpreter? Well, that's all you said. If you know the client, I guess it depends. All this is going to depend, but I would say this actually happened to me. I mean, the community's so small. I got no choice but to happen to you in real life, honestly. But this happened to me, and I remember I asked one of my deaf mentors, and we were talking about a medical assignment. And I asked him, I said, hey, there's a person who I'm about to interpret for in a few days or whenever it was, that I know them. But this is a medical assignment. Like, should I tell them? You know, I wasn't sure how to feel. And the deaf person told me, yes, tell them. Specifically, if it's something that's sensitive in nature. A medical assignment, legal assignment, something that you wouldn't want everybody knowing. Things like that, you want to, yes. If you know the deaf person, ask them. If you have that ability to contact them or something like that, ask them, hey, I'm assigned to interpret your appointment. I'm assigned to interpret your hearing. You want to ask them because, you know, that's more trust from the deaf person. You're being genuine, you're being authentic, and then you're giving them the option to say, I don't want you involved in that part of my life, or they do. Give them that option. It helps. The third question says, I'm a VRS interpreter. I always run into the problem where the hearing person does not understand that I am an interpreter interpreting for the deaf person and they hang up. What can I do about that? All right, so I work VRS too. So I think you can handle this in a couple different ways. But for those who don't know what VRS is, VRS, Video Relay Service. A high level overview of what it is basically when a deaf person and a hearing person are calling each other and they're trying to have a phone conversation, there's an interpreter that's looped into the mix for communication between the two. So on one side of the phone, basically is like FaceTime. Me, the interpreter, I can see the deaf person generally on like FaceTime. Just imagine that. And so that's one side. And then the hearing person is like a normal phone inside of a headset, so I can talk to them. So I see the deaf person and I'm talking to the hearing person. VRS, video relay service. So in this situation, basically what you can do is you can embody that hearing person, their tone. 120% embody it. Like really harp on those facial expressions. You can say if the hearing person, let's say you're calling a bank, and the hearing person is not trying to access the account because you say your name is Gladys Stone and you're a guy, so they're just like, they're not trusting you, so they're asking you all these questions. You can just be like, so like you're interpreting, you can look like, so what's your address? Sure. You like really embody their tone that they have to show the deaf person that clearly this hearing person doesn't believe you. Now, the deaf person could see that facial expression and they could just overlook it. They could. Or maybe the deaf person think that that's just how you look while you're interpreting, so they're not saying nothing. It's not foolproof, but that's one way just to show it. And if you do that, if they get hung up on, it is what it is. Just say, next call, and keep it moving. Another way you can handle it is you can say, as you're interpreting, and then you're hearing the suspicion from the hearing person, as you're interpreting, you can just hop to the side, little role shift, just hop to the side and say, like interpreter speaking, the hearing person, you'll point at this because you got the headset. So like they suspicious me, interpreter, and then get back to interpreting. That little comment right there, that's you trying to empower them. Like, hey, I'm letting you know that I hear the suspicion in their voice. You told them, now get back to it. Let them decide what they want to do with it. But that's a good question. Next question is, as a staff interpreter, how do I convince my company that even though I am hired on staff, I still would need a team interpreter for longer meetings? That is a really good question. This one I was actually asked pretty recently on the list. So I would say the way to handle this is to not talk about yourself. That's the best thing I can say. Don't talk about how me, the interpreter, I need more support. Me, the interpreter, I need breaks so I don't get tired. That's not what you talk about. It is true, but no one cares about that. You got a job to do, and no one's going to understand really what you're talking about, so that's not the way to go. Talk about the impacts of you being tired, the impacts of you being alone for these long meetings. What is the impact? Say, hey, boss, listen, I know you hired me, but for this meeting that's coming up tomorrow, it's a 3-hour meeting. I can't interpret 3 hours straight. If I do, you run the risk of me messing up the interpretation because of burnout. So if I mess up the interpretation, now the employee is not getting the right information. Now they're getting skewed information, or maybe I'll be missing information. The point of having a team interpreter is to ensure that if there is something that I miss, my team interpreter is there to fill it in, to ensure seamless communication for the employee. Everything you said was for them, which in turn is going to be for the business. That's impacting them, their bottom line, their goals. That's a much more palatable way to show like, hey, you need support, but it's not for you being lazy, nothing like that. It's because you need support for the reason that you're there, for interpreting, not because you just tired of nothing like that. Other question is, what's the fastest way to develop your skills expressively and receptively? Immersion. That's basically the answer, immersion. To get more specific, For expressive, the fastest way I've noticed in my experience to develop expressively is actively seeking out vocabulary. That's the number one thing that we all do when we first start learning. We're getting vocabulary. Well, that vocabulary is the number one thing to keep us growing as we continue in this field. So actively seeking out vocabulary and practicing it, that's probably the best thing that I could say to continue to grow expressively. Receptively, yes, immersion, yes, socializing with the deaf community. I would also say use a lot of content creators, social media and vloggers, deaf vloggers. In my understanding, when you find a deaf vlogger or a page where deaf people just make, vlogs that just talk about any and everything, that's when you see a much different kind, a lot more native, a lot more cultural signing. In that's the one that if you understand that, you got a good shot at improving receptively. This next one says, what is some advice you can give for dressing nice as an interpreter? I so appreciate this question. You do not need to be dressing in an all-black garb, looking like you a freaking Undertaker. You don't need to do that. You can have some color. The rule of thumb is just keep it clean. Just keep it clean. Me personally, I try not to use more than 2 colors going on up here at the same time. No more than 2 colors. And even the 2 colors, I try to keep it nice and neat. Some over here, some over there. I try to keep it like that. But use the colors. You can use your pink and greens. You can put the orange and blue together. You can put your blue with some brown in there. You can do stuff like that. Don't just be stuck to what we're all told, contrasting your skin tone. So now we're all just wearing black, or we're just wearing white, or we're just wearing one color that works. You can use all the colors you have under the rainbow. Just keep it clean. Keep it where the deaf person is not distracted. I wouldn't wear no plaid. I wouldn't do that. I did see one time, this guy, he had pretty much kind of what I got on, but he had a full button up. And it was plaid. I'm talking about like a strong, that thing looked like he was from Scotland. They plaid button up shirt with the collar out, and then he threw on a sweater over top. Like I'm doing. This shirt right here got a lot going on with it. But I like salmon. Who don't like the color salmon? It make the arms look swole. I still got some space in my sleeve. I need to do a couple more curls. But anyway, as long as you keep it clean, keep it organized, the deaf person didn't complain, so I ain't no hater. All power to you, brother. This question says, what can I do? I have failed the exam 4 times. My local mentor said there's nothing they can do for me. Have you met with this person yet? He would be an awesome guy to network with. You failed the exam 4 times. I'm assuming you talk about the national exam. If you are a person that's getting feedback as in like, hey, you're great, go take the test, you'll pass the test, no problem. If you got people telling you there's no feedback, you're doing good. If maybe you're a mentor yourself, maybe you giving feedback to other people because they look up to you, but you can't pass the national exam. 1, don't think that there is something about like there's a certain class or a certain skill or a certain bit of feedback that's going to just click for you and you're just going to grow. I think by this time, especially that person, they said they failed it 4 times. So they've been taking this test. They've been in the field for some time. You've pretty much heard everything under the sun. It's nothing anyone can tell you that's going to change anything for you. And the fact that your mentors say that there's nothing they can give you feedback on shows that you have the skill to interpret. The only advice I would say is just, what is it still that you haven't done yet? Like, if you are a person that, let's say you are that person, failed 4 times, you're a good interpreter, but one thing you won't interpret, you won't do no music. You're like, nah, I don't do music, don't do concerts, I just don't do it. That's where you will start passing. Right there. You see, there's no reason that you have this kind of block up for not doing concert or something like that. It's just because it's not comfortable. Go and lean into that. Once you do that, trust me, when you conquer that concert fear, maybe if it's illegal, try to get into there too. Make sure you have a certification though, because legal, that's high risk, high profile, like I talked about earlier. So make sure you're good with that. But when you end these certain assignments that you're like, I'm kind of scared, don't want to get into that, I'm telling you, those assignments are the ones that's going to give you so much confidence that when you go to the test, you're not going to be nervous anymore. You have to lean into, what haven't I done yet? What have I always said I refuse to do? Do that. I guarantee you it will give you all the confidence you need to pass that test. Next, how do you manage turn taking in a meeting? Well, there's so many different kinds of meetings, so I can't just tell you everything. I will say this though, some strategies I use when we are talking in a meeting, I'm going to think about a meeting in person. You want to first tell the deaf person, like, hey, I want to make an announcement just saying, can everybody please make sure you're talking one at a time just to make sure I can interpret everything. Let the deaf person know you want to make that announcement. They clear you to go ahead and make that announcement. So that's one way to try to control it before the meeting even starts. But if the meeting starts, and even if they are turn taking, it's just the turn taking is happening so fast, the deaf person is like they're trying to talk, but every time they try to talk, because we're like 2-3 seconds behind. So because of that, now every time the deaf person tries to talk, someone else takes it. If you're running into that problem for turn taking in a meeting, what you should do is, as you're interpreting what the hearing person or whatever they're talking about, as you're interpreting, you will know, hey, this person's about to be done. Go ahead, as you're interpreting, tell the deaf person, come on, say something. Because you just need that extra 2-3 seconds to understand what that deaf person's about to say, and then you can command the space. So as you're interpreting, just say what you say. Like, go ahead, tell them to answer it. And then as they're talking, your 2-3 seconds, you caught up the interpretation. They are starting to sign for 2-3 seconds. So now you're understanding what they're saying. It gives you kind of that space. So as soon as that hearing person's done, you can be like, yes, so, and then you command that space. Or if you don't do the little, because maybe you're too much involved in interpreting, you can't break away to tell them to come on, say something, then go ahead. If you know that person want to talk, command that space. Just say, yes, I have thoughts on this. Just some kind of transition sentence always works out like that. And the last one that I have, this says, I'm slowly starting to learn sign because of a radiation has destroyed my lower jaw. Now I have absolutely no speech. Lord have mercy. Okay. Now I have absolutely no speech, and ASL is difficult for an old man like myself to learn. But I must keep trying though. Any advice? Sir, hats off to you for trying to continue to communicate despite whatever goes on. So props to you for that. I'm probably going to get heat for this, truly. I'll tell you my honest advice. In your situation, it's probably best to learn from a hearing person. I know, I'm probably going to get heat for it, but let me explain. The reason why I would say this for you specifically, sir, we in the community say learn from a deaf person because we want to be amongst the deaf community. We want to learn from them, and that's their language. They are the best to teach it. But the reason why I'm telling you to learn from a hearing person, because you're an older gentleman, you didn't say you wanted to become an interpreter. It seems like you're learning ASL as a necessity of communication versus interest or anything like that. Because of that, you need someone who's going to be able to more closely understand things that you're used to and normalized to. You say you're an older gentleman, so you want to get someone that's closest to you into that teacher space so you can learn from them. A deaf person can have a lot of things that's related to you. They can. The thing is, it might be something that isn't clicking because it is two different cultures. Deaf culture and hearing culture, they are different. So if you get with a person from a hearing culture, because you're learning just to learn to communicate. You're not trying to be an interpreter. If you're trying to be an interpreter, go to the deaf community. If you're trying to work with deaf people, go to the deaf community. But in this situation, you need it for necessity. You might find it where you're understanding more and able to relate more to a hearing person who's teaching you some sign. So that would be my suggestion for that. In any case, I appreciate y'all questions. Continue to give me the questions. Drop them down below while you're there. Let's go ahead and make it a 400, 500, 600 subs. And the first step to doing that is dropping a like, commenting, and subscribing. Also, hit me up on the socials. I'm really active on my Facebook and my Instagram, so I will see you out there. Y'all came in the lab. Now let's go ahead and have a good day. Hey!